I have questions on how enforcement would happen within this bathroom situation. Say I'm in there at the urinal and an individual walks in a facility that's under this code provision. So it could be a higher learning, it could be a school. The individual walks in, some gray hair, not very muscular, has some gender neutral shoes on, maybe they're Velcro, and I have questions. And this individual bypasses the urinal and goes to the stall. Then I hear them using the restroom. And those questions arise even more. Is that a man or is that a woman? Where do I go from there? Who do I report this to if I have questions? We had an amendment yesterday that passed. And the amendment explicitly says that a minor child can be examined by a healthcare professional for purposes of verifying biological sex. Again, given that scenario that I made earlier, let's say there are children involved. For these purposes of examining children, which that amendment allows for, what's the procedure for that? So if there was a question in school, say a kid wants to bully another kid, and there's a question in school over this biological sex, how does that work? Do they report it to the principal?
Well, I'm going to go back to your question about a healthcare provider, which is what the portion of the amendment talked about that you raised first. To me, that's a completely reasonable and common sense exception.
Okay, again, back to my original question, the school. I'm asking about the school. If there's a situation at school where potential kids are being bullied, how does that procedure work? If kid A has questions about kid B, how does this play out procedurally? Does kid A go to the principal? Does kid A go to the nurse? Who do they report this to if they have questions?
Well, those scenarios have actually occurred in reported cases in different federal circuits, and what normally happens is there will be a complaint lodged by a student or someone in the student's family with the administration at the school.
You agree with me that this legislation is silent on that, isn't it?
I think it would just follow normal policy we've always had in the past. So let's say, for example, that you have a student today. This bill is not law. If you had a student who complained to a principal that someone of the other biological sex was inappropriately in a single-sex space, which does currently exist in law, then the normal process would be to go report that to a teacher or the administration. So I don't think that would change. I'm not sure why it would because this passes.
Well, with the amendment in saying that a child can now be examined as long as there's parental consent based on the purpose of biological sex, I don't believe that's been in code before, has it?
A child can be examined with parental consent by a healthcare provider. That is not a unique or unusual provision of law.
For the purposes of just identifying their biological sex? Has that been in code before?
That is something that a healthcare provider could be required to do today without this bill being law.
But it hasn't been in code. That you have essentially a new grievance. You can identify a child and try to go through a grievance process to determine their biological sex. That has not been in code before. This is the signature piece of legislation from the governor. Do nothing bills that do nothing for people of West Virginia, only do something for the politicians in West Virginia. Election bills. That's what these are really about. Doesn't add one single job, we just heard. Doesn't add one single job. Doesn't raise one single dollar in the state. In the state that ranks 48th in education, 48th in the economy, 48th in healthcare. All these young people, I wish they had dreams of staying, but the evidence says otherwise. Because we would rather be number one in legislative bigotry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.